Hey y'all, hey, welcome back to my channel. It is Christian here, and you are tuned in for more of my 2 cents. If you are new to the channel, then welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are a returning 2 center, then hey y'all, hey, welcome back. We got a great video for you guys today. I know I've been missing, but we still gonna do the things, okay? So if you're new over here, this is a safe space where we dive deep into the realms of religion and deconstruction. Now, if you're joining me, I hope you're ready to, engage on a thought provoking journey as we explore the intricacies of belief systems, challenge conventional thinking, and unravel the layers of faith, doubt, and discovery. Now, through open discussions and insightful explorations, we'll navigate the complexities of deconstruction in various religious contexts. This is a space for reflection, growth, and understanding. So, whether you're questioning, seeking, or simply curious, this channel is a safe space, like I said earlier, for exploring the intersections of spirituality and self discovery. So, let's embark upon this journey together as we get ready, okay, to talk about Dancing with the Devil from Netflix. Ooh wee, this is going to be a good one. But I got some notes to keep me aligned, all right? Now, there are 3 points that matter most before we start any discussion. Number one, you're not alone. Number two, you're not crazy. And number three, God, your creator, so loves you, and I do too. Now, it's been a minute since my last video, about 3 or 4 weeks specifically. And that's really because I'm not going to hold you. I treat my YouTube channel as an open journal or a book for my ideas when I have an idea on a certain topic or situation that's going on in mass media or something specifically related to the church, Christianity specifically. And I got to tell you, I just hadn't seen anything that sparked my interest to want to speak on because I try not to have an opinion on everything in today's society because people and situations are ever changing and evolving. And I just don't want to care all the time. I just don't. When I worked in radio, we always had to care. We always had to weigh in and talk about trending news and topics and in the religious sector. And I just don't want to be in that position. Like, life is good. I'm chill. I am attracting and aligning with things that actually serve me and make me happy and bring me peace. And I like to just stay in that space and sometimes dipping into all of these other situations and people's, circumstances, it can throw you off. It can really affect your life and it can affect your energy and your mood. And I'm just not here for that. So I like to be very, very cognizant of how I engage with certain news and information and what I weigh in on because if it doesn't affect me personally, baby, I couldn't care less. Just saying. So that's why I ain't saying nothing about Jamal Bryant getting married. That's why I ain't saying nothing about TD Jakes, commenting on the P. Diddy situation. Because it's like these people are just going to be who they are. I feel like I've touched on these folks and I ain't going back. Same reason why I ain't come back with a Keon Henderson update on what he did on the Tamron Hall show or what's happened since then with everybody else wanting to hear from the woman in the church. It's like, listen, these people's lives are what they are. People choose to support them, rally around them, and make them celebrities and be fans. So let them folks have that. I'll talk about it once. If it's really, really huge and big and I got something to say, I may do a part two. But if not, shall we move right along? So here we go. We're going to be going into the Netflix series. It was a special, but it only had 3 episodes, okay? So I have been seeing this on my Netflix coming up, soon, like suggestions for about 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, like you can't really tell much from the thumbnail or from this picture, but the title of the documentary or the docu-series was Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok Cult. Now, this is huge for so many different reasons because you have heard of TikTok by now, whether you use it or not, whether you watch anything from TikTok or not, you've heard of the platform and you're aware of what it's used for. The unfortunate part about this is that there are just so many different elements that come with the word cult. But by and large, when you hear that word, the first thing you think of is religion, brainwashing, right? And people freedom revoked. Like, cults do not just let you roam free and do what you please. It is 1000% control, manipulation, and like no freedom. That's what comes to my mind, and religion. So usually a church is involved when you talk about a cult, and it doesn't have to be a religion that you've heard of. People are out here creating their own religions every day. People are out here creating their own churches, their ministries, and all of that by themselves. Shout out to the Scientologists and their creator, because he totally made that up, Ron L. Hubbard, on his own. Okay, so that's just one of many that we know of that have done that. But this series here caught my attention because it was like nothing I've ever heard of before. A dance cult? Like, what is you talking about? How would this even be pulled off? I was intrigued. So I sat to watch it this weekend, watched all 3 episodes in one day, and I don't want to say I left with more questions than answers, because I never have questions for these people, not a lot. The only one that I usually walk away with is, how did you let this happen? But these were young adults, impressionable young adults, who were artists, creators, and they wanted a big break. This is how they were preyed upon. Because usually with other cults, these are adults who have lives, careers, or they are recovering addicts, or they have issues where they have been isolated and they're not really a part of anything that supports them and that they get love and community from. So it's easy to target them in certain cult settings because they end up at church looking for all of what I just named: love, support, community, relationship, acceptance. So you go to church because they say, come as you are. And then when you get there, they control you. Come as you are, and I'll change you into who I want you to be. Well, this is what happened in this situation, because these young adults wanted success, they wanted fame, they wanted money, they wanted to be known, they wanted to be accepted. And this man, Robert Sheehan, let's pull up Robert, honey. Robert Sheehan promised them all of that. He promised them all of that. And so we're going to talk about it. But I just want to be very clear here that when we talk about cults, it has such a huge impact on people's lives because it thrives off of isolation. It thrives off of isolation. And the central focus is normally your family, your friends do not understand you. They do not understand the choice you've made. They will not be supportive of you. And you have to be all right with walking alone. And if they can get that in you, for you to accept that and believe that mindset, they have their claws in you for as long as they want. Because once you separate yourself from family and friends and people who are outside of this kind of, mind controlled, manipulative environment, you're not going to take anything they say as truth or reasonable. Their logic is going to seem like attacks. Their concern is going to seem like envy. Their, questions are going to seem like interrogations. And all they want to do is get you to understand that you're not a part of something normal, but the work and the words that have been spoken and shared and given to you from the leader, the head, the cult leader, has already been, downloaded and seeded and planted and watered and has sprouted up, that they are your family, they are your protector, they are your connection, they are, the ones that care about you the most. And it's just unfortunate because once that's done, it is pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered that you'll never exit unless something like what happened in this docuseries unravels. And it, to me, people say, would it take an act of God? It really does take some enlightenment like none other for most people to even realize they are part of a cult. And I want to go ahead and give y'all the definition of a cult so that we can just all be on the same page here. So a cult is, child, I looked up culture. Key word, right? Because that is definitely a derivative of cult. So a cult is a system of religious, well, it says religious veneration. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. Okay? A system of religious and devotion, veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So, usually, when someone is leading a cult, you're not really focused on a creator. You're not focused on God. You're not focused on this higher power or being. They weave in those kinds of powerful beings, but at the top, at the center, it is them. You are directed towards them. They are the source, they are the answer, they are the giver of light, they are the carrier of answers, of solutions, of healing, of power. And that's what Robert Shen was in this case in the 7M cult. But he had a ministry called Shekinah. Okay, he had Shekinah Church, Shekinah Ministries, which is so crazy because that's my sister's name. And if you don't know what Shekinah means, Shekinah in religious definition is a visible sign of God's presence. Okay, so if you've ever heard of the Shekinah glory, that just means that that's a visible sign of God's presence. Like, oh, come rest, you're here, we can see you. This is a representation of who God is, and it is present in our midst. This man church was called Shekinah. I can tell you right now that nothing he was doing was a visible sign of any God other than himself. But I digress for now. So the center characters in this story and in this documentary would be two sisters here, and that is Miranda and Melanie. So Miranda and Melanie Wilking were sisters, and they look like twins, like they could be a little fraternal, but they're not twins at all. They're sisters, and they danced. So they were dancers. They had their own social media accounts where they danced, and they are good. All right, they grew up dancing, had a passion for dancing, and they carried that out into their young adulthood. And they had become pretty successful. I mean, had multiple millions of views on their content for their dancing to certain songs, great choreography, had built a strong community, was getting very great partnerships and deals, lucrative partnerships and deals, brand deals. And, Robert Shen entered stage left with 7M, which is a dance group or a dance management group, a talent management group. And he already had other dancers in 7M that he was managing. And he brought in the Wilking sisters. And soon after, them joining, they started to pretty much separate. And one was isolated from the other. So the sister that this docuseries really focused on was Miranda. Like, where is Miranda? What is going on with Miranda? We want to see Miranda. And it's just so unfortunate because you realize that there was really no way to avoid this because they wanted to be dancers. They wanted to be popular and famous, and they had amassed that already independently. But when a bigger source comes in and you see these other people who appear to be doing so well, you want that too. And I'm going to try to continuously draw correlations between their situation and how it, flowed into his church, because Robert Shen's Shekinah Church had nothing to do with 7M management. It had nothing to do with the dance side, the secular side of business, but he blurred the lines and began to have Bible studies where he was inviting the dancers. And it was by invitation only. So these Bible studies should have been open to the general public, but when you're running a cult, they're not. So I can tell you this right now. If you're a part of a ministry, quotey air fingers, because it's not a ministry, and you can only show up and you only know the location and the address and the time and date of services if you're invited and it's sent to you secretively, you're a part of something sinister. You're a part of something that's not safe, that's not wholesome, that's not true, that's not authentic, and it is rooted in something else that is meant to isolate and manipulate. It just is. It reminds me of G. Craig Lewis. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but he's the one that used to do the Truth Behind Hip Hop videos and DVDs. G. Craig Lewis has been exposed for running a cult as well. But people in the black church are going to ignore that because of the work that he did on the music side of unveiling and allegedly uncovering demonic, songs and things like that. People played those videos relentlessly in church and youth groups. We had to suffer and sit through it and watch them. This man literally operates his church the same way here in a part of Texas, like Houston, Texas, around there, like the Sugarland area. But he has a church, it ain't open to the complete general public. Blacked out windows, like it's invite only, really. These people are really doing this stuff in modern day society, and folks are signing up for it because they simply want to belong. So with this sister Miranda, who's the one on the right in the white hoodie, she's the one that was isolated from her sister Melanie. And as close and tight knit as they were, that separation came where Miranda was the one getting invited to these Bible studies and these Sunday services, and Melanie was not. And Melanie found it very strange and weird. But by this time, she was on the outer circle. Her sister had already been raptured up, honey. Okay, her mind had already been swallowed. Shout out to TD Jakes. It had already been swallowed up. Now, the thing about it was that Miranda just didn't get swallowed up because of church. She got swallowed up because of a guy. She liked a guy that was in the group already, well, that was being managed by 7M, and they got really close. And from there, she just pretty much decided to go off with him and be full-time 7M, separate and isolate herself from her family. And her parents are completely devastated at this point by the time they realize that they've lost their daughter. And they didn't know it until they had a loved one to pass away and she refused to go to the funeral. And they were so shocked because they were like, "What do you mean you're not going?" They didn't even know at this point that she was even in anything that would be causing her to separate from them, which is so scary because you can literally have a loved one being, taken advantage of and preyed upon. And since they're an adult, you just think they're living their life and doing their thing. They don't have to answer to you either. But someone else has gotten into their ear. Someone else has preyed upon their, naivete and have used it to their advantage. And by this point, that is exactly what had happened. So once they realized, okay, and Melanie told them what was going on, it was too late. Robert had already gotten what he needed to get, which was Miranda, which then turns into the Shekinah church side of things, where you go from just being a dancer for 7M Films, with the CEO being Robert Shin, to pretty much a slave worker. He was requiring them to pay 10% tithe to Shekinah Church. He was requiring them to pay a man of God fee. Y'all hear what I said. Y'all heard me right. Robert Sheehan had these grown adults paying him a man of God fee, a management fee, and then they also had to pay him rent in the house that he gave, the 7M um, uh, dancers, whoever was a part of the agency. He, presented, he had money. He had money, and we will go on throughout the docuseries to find out he had done this before to another group of young adults. But it wasn't dancers, it wasn't creators. These were just everyday people that he had already done a cult with before and had used them for free labor. This man is sick. There's a history and there's a pattern. And once people are done doing it to one group, and I don't want to say they get caught, but they get tired, they move on to another group. And that's what he did with the 7M Films management. He was, hey, okay, new group, new people, I can make money off of them. These dancers are bringing in lucrative deals, getting commercials, getting ads, getting placement, getting brand deals and partnerships. And since he was the one managing it, he started telling them what music to dance to, how to dress. And these young men and women were listening because he had told them he could make them rich. I can give you what you want. Stick with me and I'll take you to the top. And they believed him because he had the money, he had the cars, he had the nice houses. But they weren't really looking at the fact that they were isolated. You think that you've built this community of friends and dancers that love and, are excited about the creative space like you, not realizing there's one person at the top here. If y'all all just sit down and look at it, it's all of y'all making this one person wealthy. It's all of y'all paying for this one person's lifestyle. One guy said that it had gotten to the point where he was giving 70% of his income to Shekinah Church, to Robert Sheehan. 70%. And if your local ministry could get you to do that, they would. They harass you now for the 10 and want you to do more on top of that. But this man was able to literally infiltrate their lives, tithe and management fees. A man of God fees? Rent? What? How? How am I doing 20% management fee, 10% man of God fee? I'm doing rent, which is about 15, 20% as well. Then I have a tithe charge from your church. I just want to dance. I ain't got to go to your church. But that's what he was using to connect back to his nonprofit, because church is a nonprofit, right? 501c3, ain't nobody coming for me. So he was literally operating in what could be looked at, of course, of commingling funds, but paying them from the 7M side and then having them sign over their money to the Shekinah Church side as donations. It is truly a mind F watching this and hearing how this man was operating and using these young people. But it worked because they were hungry and they were thirsty for community and for exposure and growth. And he preyed on that. And so throughout the film, you'll go on to learn that they really didn't think that this was a problem, the dancers at first, until they started, realizing that Miranda, was disconnecting from her family. They saw it blatantly, what Robert was doing, the other dancers did, and they ignored it a little bit, and then it became too big to ignore. And they saw the family's plea online for him to pretty much free her, to let her go. But there was nothing they could do, because it's not unlawful to run a cult, y'all. Did y'all know that? It's not unlawful to run a cult. It's not unlawful to take control of another person's everyday life. It's not. And they said so in the documentary as well. And I be trying to get people to understand this. There is nothing illegal about a cult. You have to be able to prove these people are doing something illegal within the cult, but it's not illegal to run a cult. That's just a belief system. You're just picking who you want to serve and how you want to engage. That has nothing to do with the law. That's nothing to do, there's nothing that can regulate your religious or spiritual practices. If you want to worship a whole cat, that is your business. If you want to worship a backpack, that is your business. If you want to worship Mickey and Minnie as first lady and past and man of God, that is your business. Nobody's coming in to stop you. You should probably have a nice padded room with a jacket that buttons up in the back, but nobody can make you do that. Nope. So that's the sad part about all of this, honestly, because as the parents started trying to save their daughter, there was nothing they can save because she was choosing to be there. So Robert won so many times over in this docuseries. He won so many times over in this situation because he had presented something that her parents and her sister could not, which was a promise of a life that she truly wanted. Yeah, the parents presented a life and access to certain things with her growing up. But now I'm an adult and I have my own goals and my own desires. And this man said he can do it. I want that. Not to mention her meeting her now husband. She loves him. He's connected with it too. He's huge. His name is B Dash. That's his, performer name. So I've met my husband here. I'm happy. She got married. Her family didn't even know it. They saw the proposal on social media. They were dancing in a video when she turned around the video, he was on one knee proposing. That's how her family found out about one of the biggest moments in her life, through social media, because she'd cut them off. So sad and so unfortunate. And it wasn't until her family made a plea video online that went viral, because they were telling and sharing about what Robert Shin had done and how he has manipulated and brainwashed their daughter and taken her from their family, it wasn't until then that they called, that Miranda would call her parents and say, okay, let's meet. Which it's very clear that Robert wanted that to happen to kind of cool the heat off of him. Like, hey, y'all go ahead and call your mama. Call your mama and your daddy, because they acting up on the internets and they saying stuff about me and they gonna mess up my money. So again, further manipulation and control. And it's just unfortunate because there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing you can do to save a person from something they don't believe is dangerous. I'm going to say that again. There's nothing you can do to save a person from something they don't believe is dangerous. You can't tell a child that fire is hot until the child feels the heat. You can't convince a person that the water is deep until they cannot ground their feet. Some people got to learn. Some people don't know that it's dangerous until the danger is in their faces. And usually it's too late. Usually you're too afraid. Usually you're too connected and you believe that you disconnecting would actually be the end of you, the demise of you, which makes it even worse because that means that person has gotten so deep into your head, into your ears, into your mind, that your own voice is mute. You can't even think for yourself. Your own thoughts feel like betrayal to your leader. I'll never forget how I used to feel after we first left church and I would be at home on a Sunday doing nothing, and how I felt so guilty. I felt so bad. And of course, people would say, well, that was just conviction of the Holy Spirit. No, it wasn't. It was conviction of man. I had filled my weekend with preparation for church my entire life. Saturdays had to be wrapped up early to get home, to get our clothes and stuff together for church the next day. And all day Sunday was a morning service. And then back in the day, we had evening services. Me and my sister were just talking about this. We grew up having two services a Sunday. And it wasn't because we had a huge ministry, we had to have two different times. It was because that's just how active our parents and our pastors were. They had people in church in the morning and in the night. Sunday school starting at 8 and 9 a.m. Church getting out at 2 and 3 o'clock p.m. You going home, scarfing down food, changing clothes for a little bit. My mama used to just put a big t-shirt over her church clothes. That's how we didn't even get to relax and unwind on a Sunday, because we were just going right back at 7 p.m. Only a 4-hour break, y'all, to go back and do it again. So you get into these routines and these schedules where your voice is suppressed more and more and more. And of course, they would love you to think that the voice you're truly adhering to and listening to and following is that of God. But you look at the constructs and the control and the scheduling, it's somebody else that made this up. Who said Sunday school had to start at 8? Who came up with the fact that you would just start berating people and telling them, don't look at your clock? Y'all just trying to get out here to these restaurants and these buffets. That's human rhetoric. That's human, volatile speech. God is not speaking through a person in a pulpit with a microphone to tell them don't look at their clock. Tell them don't worry about what time it is. Nobody's telling you to relate that to the people in the audience. You want to say that. So you start hearing that more and more for years and decades, and that becomes your mindset too. Oh no, I can't, I shouldn't be rushing out of the house of God. I do sit at my desk for 8 to 10 hours a day. If I can give my boss 8 or 10 hours, I can surely give God 4. It's literally that kind of work, y'all, that underlying energy and emotional manipulation that starts to make you question your own logic. And soon your logic is out of the door and only theirs stand. That's how Robert Shin was able to play in these young adults' face and get a man of God fee. What the hell is that? Y'all gotta explain to me what a man of God fee is. I'm just saying. I have to know what a man of God fee is immediately. Because if I'm paying you the tithe What is the man of God fee for? That is not my business, you accepting his calling where I now have to pay for it. Trash and disgusting, but that's what he was able to do, and it worked for him. So on the flip side, by the second and third episode of this docu-series, it was revealed to us that he had done this prior. He'd done this prior with another group of people, and when one of the women who used to be a part of it back in the day, when she had heard and saw the video of the Wilking family pleading for Miranda to be freed and returned and able to contact them, she was like, oh, S, he's doing it again. He's doing it again. It's crazy. Her name is Priscilla Lee. Her and her sister were a part of his first cult. And they got free. They got out. And now Phyllis is meeting with Miranda's family and talking with them and sharing her experience. And it's so sad because he was using their cult and their members back then for free work. This man had real estate companies. He had all kinds of other businesses that he was using church members, Shekinah church members, to work in and paying them $60 a week, $100 a week. Do y'all hear me? Robert Sheehan has been with the shits for a long time, using church members as free slave workers, having them work all day in multiple companies of his, 13, 14-hour shifts. These are not time slots I'm making up. This is what these people said and testified to themselves in this docuseries, that this man was using them and also assaulting them, sleeping with these women on the side with a wife, a whole wife, telling these women that they had to honor him as their man of God and be his side piece, be his mistress. He literally asked Priscilla's sister, told her that she was going to be his mistress. Those were his exact words. I will take you as my mistress. I ain't got nothing else to say. You going to run these books and you going to run me that ad. That's what Robert said. The man of God who's getting a man of God fee. So when you think about being preyed on just spiritually, cult leaders don't just want you to care about salvation. They don't want you to care about salvation at all, actually. They just want the continued access and power of your person. They want power and control over your mind, over your time, over your freedom. And I don't know if it's something that they get off on. I don't know if it's something that makes them feel bigger and stronger and better about themselves. But the fact that they're able to use religion to do it should concern y'all about religion in general. Robert took it to the extreme of being able to use people for work, being able to use people for sex, being able to use people and in his business as talent to manage. He wanted to be famous and popular himself, but since he couldn't do it, he decided to attach himself to people who could the second time around with these dancers. They made his name great. He thought it was such a huge accomplishment to be able to land these brand deals, but it was no talent of his own. It was all of the talent of the dancers. But their minds will never get that. It's because of me that you are who you are. I'll never forget when my husband and I left the church that we did in Mississippi, and our pastors would not meet with us. We tried to meet with them and talk to them to let them know, what our grievances were and to see what the path forward was going to be. And they wouldn't meet with us. They went out of town instead. And that's their business. They're grown. They could have done that, but they also could have met with us too, because the grievances that we had were huge. They were very valid and they definitely should have been addressed as soon as they were brought up, but they were not. And so they played with the right ones, because instead of us waiting for them to return, because you are not the Messiah, and I do not care about the day nor the hour that you want to pop up, but I know today you getting this email. So they received a nice long email from Courtney, and our pastor at the time, he didn't respond, but his wife did. And one thing she said in that email that I'll never forget, she told us
don't you forget that you all are only who you are because of me and my husband. Now, she said their names. She said our names. Don't you all forget that Courtney and Christian are only who they are because of me and my husband. What? Say what now? How? Who said that? Oh, okay. That's really how these people believe. That's really how these people think. If I can isolate you and bring you down to the smallest particle of yourself, if I can make you feel like you're nothing without me, as if though you need me for every move and moment in your life, don't think that it's just so loving and awesome when you're being love bombed in church, because you are, that someone is always available for you. When we first started going to our church, our pastor was always available to us. And I'm sharing this because I want you guys to know. I feel as if though our pastor had cult energy, but he couldn't really exercise it as fully as he wanted to, because some people was just so distressed and broke that they couldn't really commit fully to the cult. They had to work and they had to say no to stuff, and it pissed him off royally. He couldn't really get everybody in church to just give over their minds to him, but if he could have, he would have. So when we first started going to the church, um, our whole energy, we were young, we were 21. And it was like a whole new world for us, because even though we had both grown up in church, we didn't really listen in church. So now here we are as young adults on our own, able to determine what our relationship with God will be and who that leader of that relationship and covering would be. And it was him. It wasn't our pastors that we grown up with. Yes, they were influential and we knew them and we knew their life and their walk, but we didn't have a relationship with them. Those were our parents' choices of church. Now we were able to choose. Whoop, the microphone took a dip. We were able to choose who our pastor would be and how we would engage with him. And so it was this church, and he was always available for Courtney and I. If, you know, we had questions, Courtney needed a job, he got Courtney a job um, at Sears, actually, in the electronics department or whatever. And then after that, he'd come by our house like to do an official welcome. He saw our home. We had a nice home at the time because we moved into Courtney's sister's house when we first got married. And it was a beautiful home, like on a golf course and all of that. Child, we barely had furniture in it, but we was in there. And so he came by our house, saw we had a nice home. So I'm pretty sure by then he was like, oh, these jokers they come from money or something, which we didn't come from money, but the appearance gave, okay? And so he started coming over, cutting the grass for us, because Courtney didn't have a lawnmower, but we were going to pay, somebody locally to probably cut our grass for us or whatever. But he started coming over, cutting the grass for us. Like, I would come home from my job at Ross just for less, okay? And Pastor would be on the riding lawnmower cutting our grass, front and back, front and back, every other week. Do you hear me, y'all? We didn't ask him. He didn't ask us for no money. He was just doing it. And that was awesome. We were like, oh my goodness, he is amazing. This is the best pastor we've ever seen. Like, what other pastor do this? It's love bombing. And as time went on, there were other good things that he did do. But now that I'm out of it, I realized it was all ulterior motive. Yes, he did that stuff, but he also did other manipulative stuff. He also made other side, sly, shady comments that were meant to beat down and suppress who we were, and to make us feel beholden to him, and to make us feel like we owed him something because of everything he done. He was filling up the slots, right, for him to hit the jackpot. So when he had things he wanted and had requests of us, we didn't want to tell him no. At one point, I've shared before, my husband was emptying out his wallet on Sunday, several occasions. We would get in the car on our way home, and Courtney was like God told me to give Pastor everything I had in my wallet. He what? Why didn't that message come through my voicemail as well? Why didn't I get that text message too? This kind of stuff. And I can't say that God didn't tell my husband to do that, but I can definitely tell you that when bills are due, rent is due, light and gas and water is due, groceries are needed, nobody told you to get that man what was in your wallet. Now, you may have felt emotionally driven to do so, but that's the point. That's the thing. When people don't say no, 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 no. Because see, my question in these situations always is always about discernment. Nobody could tell. Nobody's discernment was keen enough. And I know these were young people who just wanted to be in a group and dance and make money. But once y'all went over to the Shekinah church side, y'all weren't clearly being fed anything heavy or weighty or spiritual enough for y'all to really have a spiritual or moral compass to say, okay, he seems shady. He doing too much. A man of God fee, tithe, plus we got to pay him rent and a management fee. That's pretty hefty. Now, I want to dance, but if I got to pay all this just to be a part of your church and the dance agency, I don't want either. That discernment was low, it was non existent. Same thing over here with us. The discernment was low, non existent, because we weren't discerning that something was off, things were not right. But pieces of who we were was still peeking through. It was still peeping through. We were still able to like see like, okay, this ain't right. That's weird. He doing stuff that don't make sense. But we stayed. We stayed connected until it became too blatantly obvious that it was controlling and manipulative and he was out of control. There was no one to put him back in line. And I had no problem with being the person who did. Because again, I'll say, I don't care what title you've given yourself. You're never the voice over me. You can be a pastor, you can be the president. If you're wrong, I'm telling you. If you're out of line, I'm informing you. If you acting up, I'm calling you out. I've always been like that since I was a child, labeled as insubordinate and put on in-school suspension for it. I didn't care. Wrong is wrong. Teacher, principal, parent, I'm telling you, you're wrong. And you're not going to like it because I'm a child or because you feel like I'm a subordinate, but I'm going to let you know so that everybody else can at least scratch their head and say, she ain't wrong. We probably don't want to say nothing either, but she right. I'd rather go out like that than to go out with everybody else, silence of the lambs, getting slaughtered like sheep, waiting for my turn. No, 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 no. Somebody got to say something. And so that was the instance with these young adults who waited so long and were taken advantage of for so long, for years. And then once it finally blows up, they're like, dang, it was almost like a trance was, they were snapped out of a trance. And when they all realized it, not all of them left, but the ones who did, it's like the love for Robert Shin left and became anger. It became disappointment and disgust that he had used them, that he had abused them, that he had isolated them and took away their youth and took away their freedom and took away the fun and the liberty that they had been creating in all along. He literally sucked that power. He sucked that creativity and the purity from them. And so that would be my takeaway from all of this, from my experience and watching this and seeing their experience. You see the joy in these two girls' faces. That's not the joy that they have now. The separation, the anxiety, the pressure, the stress. And I was just glad that Miranda is still alive. So I was like, okay, now this got a happy ending. I know the family ain't happy that they don't have their daughter and access to her, but it has a happy ending because she hasn't been harmed that we know of. So at least it hasn't ended in anyone being unalived. But the hurt and the sadness comes in because someone else, another human, decided, I want to control you. And that's what has taken her freedom and her ability to choose how she spends her time, how she flourishes and thrives in life, and who's a part of all of those milestones and moments. And no parent and no person should ever have their lives stolen from them because of the beliefs they choose to practice. No one. You should be able to go to church freely. You should be able to play an instrument freely. You should be able to engage and build community and fellowship freely without ever wondering, is someone trying to isolate me, control me, manipulate me, and take away my freedom? Why are they being so nice to me? Why are they always speaking so highly of me? Why are they always so readily available to me? Ask yourself. There's one thing to be nice and to be willing to serve and to give and to do. But you now have to go a little bit deeper. You can't just scratch the surface anymore. You have to ask yourself, what is this? Is this truly the love of God? Or is this a desire to control me with God? Is this the desire to become God in my life and in my situation? And if it feels too good to be true, if it feels like you're only working to satisfy someone else's interests, it's not. It's not what's best for you. It's not what you're called to do. The suppressing of yourself, the lack of building up your own future, only building someone else's kingdom, not the kingdom of God, but Robert Shin's kingdom has been built. This man has an empire. 7M Films is still in operation. Has not been shut down because, again, 7M Films has done nothing illegal. Now, what they did uncover, and I'm going to wrap this up, what they did uncover, Phyllis Lee and her sister, who actually didn't leave right when Phyllis left. She left a year or years after Phyllis had left. She has, since filed a lawsuit against Robert Shin, and it is for what I'm assuming would be considered fraud or embezzling of funds, because what he does or what he did with her, and she has proof of this, he would write checks to her. So he would deposit large sums of money to her and then have her gift it back to Shekinah Church, or they would pay bills out of her account with this money. Okay? All right. So he was definitely doing shady business, and he did it with the dancers too. They said he would deposit $60,000 and $30,000 into their accounts and then have them write a check back to Shekinah Church for the money, y'all. This man was doing dirty deeds in the name of God. And this is just one person we know about. I haven't even scratched I haven't determined if I'm going to do a video on Benny Hinn and him coming out and deciding to say that he missed God and some of his prophecies were not from God during all of those camp meetings he was having back in the day, doing his Mortal Kombat moves on people with that damn white jacket. Now all of a sudden you want to come out and say that God wasn't always speaking through you and using you. Now you want to say that you were lusting and thirsting after money and you didn't need to and should not have been doing it. That you didn't want to host all of those camp meetings and raise all of those offerings and those call-a-thons or whatever y'all was doing, collecting people's money over the phone. Does that come with a refund, Benny? It's amazing how people have enlightening moments when they're getting ready to be returned to sender. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Because he looked like he's about to tap out. But now you want to get it right. Okay. Y'all be playing with the right ones at the right time. Because this new generation ain't going for it. Hall & Oates, I can't go for that. No can do. It's giving accountability and it's giving right now. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But I want y'all to keep in mind, like I said before, your beliefs should never lead to you being endangered. Your beliefs should never lead to you being controlled and manipulated. Freedom, free will, free choice, it's a thing. And anyone that doesn't want you to practice it or doesn't allow you to practice it, you should not be engaging with them. Leave. Don't ask questions. Don't, try to get clarity. It is what you believe it is. It's happening the way that you believe it's happening. And the only difference between you and them is that when you leave, you have to go rebuild your life. They just need to find new people to do it too. They're not changing. God is not changing their hearts because that would go against free will. They're going to continue to do and be who they are. You just have to get free and make sure that it's never done to you again. That's your assignment. Yes, it will take time to heal. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you will feel lonely because they've isolated you, and you have to go back and build those relationships all over again, build trust, have peace, find your joy. But when you do, hold on to it and never let anybody else play in your face again. All right, you guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. This is my take on the dancing for the devil. Um, it's so unfortunate and sick to see that people will use religion for this. But this again goes back to my belief that this construct was created from the beginning to control people. And it is working. And we're seeing it abused and misused time and time again. Not just Christianity, but majority of these religions are used to control someone for someone else's benefit. Protect yourself. Stay connected to the true source, and it does not have to be connected through man, through people. Okay? You don't have to be connected to a person in order to be connected to source. You do not have to be connected to a man or woman of God to be connected to your creator. That's something I wish someone would have told me before I wasted years of my young adult life trying to please a human. You do not have to be connected to a man or woman claiming they are of God in order to be close to God. You don't need a middleman. You do not. Okay. All right. Y'all enjoy your day. Let me know in the comments below if you've watched this. What are your thoughts on it? Will you check it out? And what do you think about that man of God fee, child? That 10% man of God fee? Because you got to pay me to be called. All right. Okay. I'll talk to y'all later. Take care. Bye.